Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the epic story of how humanity actually managed to escape Earth's gravity and explore the cosmos. I mean, think about it. From the thousands of satellites orbiting us right now to the very real possibility of living on another planet, our journey into the stars is just a spectacular tale of technological evolution. But what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast of how this all started. Our journey to the stars actually began with a grueling, devastating war. It was driven by lethal weapons, specifically the 1942 V-2 missile, which tragically cost 5,000 lives. Yet, look at where we are today. Modern space exploration is this ultimate symbol of peace, international cooperation, and just boundless discovery. So, how exactly did we get from there to here? Well, here's our roadmap to figure that out. We're going to cover 1. The dark origins of spaceflight, 2. The Cold War space race, 3. The moon landing triumph, 4. A shift toward cooperation, 5. Peering into deep space, and finally, number 6. The new era of exploration. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the dark origins of spaceflight. To really understand our journey upward, we actually have to go back to 1942, right in the absolute thick of the Second World War. 1,100. That is the staggering number of V-2 ballistic missiles unleashed by Germany on Great Britain and Belgium. It was designed purely as a weapon of conflict, and as I mentioned, it took 5,000 lives. It's wild to think about, right? This laid a remarkably dark foundation for a technology that would eventually unite the globe. When we think of the architects of space exploration, we naturally picture global superpowers and idealistic scientists, but the real origin lies with the researchers who built a lethal weapon. It's a bizarre, almost unbelievable path for human progress. So, following the end of the war in 1945, this lethal technology was quickly, scooped up. Both the United States and the Soviet Union acquired these incredibly valuable rockets, along with the German scientists behind them. Almost overnight, they pivoted the purpose of this tech from wartime destruction to investigating exactly what lies beyond our planet. Which brings us to Section 2, the Cold War space race. With World War II in the rearview mirror, a new, silent geopolitical conflict started driving some unprecedented technological leaps. The space race unfolded at breakneck speed. The Soviets actually seized an early lead here, officially kicking off the space age in October 1957 by launching the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1. The United States, they immediately responded by founding NASA in 1958, and then, just a few short years later, history was made all over again. 108 minutes. That is exactly how long Soviet Lieutenant Yuri Gagarin spent in space aboard Vostok 1 in April 1961. In under 2 hours, he reached an altitude of 202 miles and permanently cemented his place in history as the very first human being to orbit the Earth. You can probably imagine, this back-and-forth competition was just incredibly intense. The Soviet Union was checking off these massive, historical firsts, the first satellite, the first human in orbit. Meanwhile, the United States was trailing just a single month behind with Alan Shepard's flight. They were desperately searching for a way to leapfrog these massive Soviet achievements. So, to regain that momentum, U.S. President John F. Kennedy set what seemed like an impossibly ambitious national goal in 1961. He committed to, quote, landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth within the decade. This bold, almost audacious declaration effectively picked up the finish line of the space race and moved it completely. Moving on to Section 3, the moon landing triumph. Now, the trek to the moon was definitely not a walk in the park. It required immense pride, relentless dedication, and sadly, tragic sacrifice. I mean, humanity had only just reached space, so declaring such an extreme ambition was perilous. In 1967, the Apollo program started with absolute heartbreak when an Apollo 1 ground fire killed 3 astronauts. But NASA pushed through. They resumed with unmanned missions, and by October 1968, Apollo 7 completed a 16-3 orbit journey. Finally, in July 1969, space exploration reached its absolute zenith as Apollo 11 actually touched down on the moon. Stepping out onto that dusty lunar surface, Neil Armstrong famously declared it one giant leap for mankind. With this massive, mind-boggling triumph, the U.S. achieved Kennedy's challenge and became the undisputed frontrunner in the space race. Next up is Section 4, a shift toward cooperation. Now, the Soviets didn't just back down after the moon landing. Instead, the whole paradigm shifted. It went from just briefly visiting celestial bodies to actually building a permanent home in space. In April 1971, the Soviets launched Salyut 1, which was the first space station. and the US quickly followed up with Skylab in 1973. But the true breakthrough, that came in July 1975, the first international docking in space between Apollo and Soyuz. Just like that, 3 decades of seeking absolute supremacy ended with a handshake right there in orbit. And the ultimate result of that newfound cooperation is the International Space Station. Created in November 1998 as a partnership between the US, Russia, and numerous other nations, it is literally the largest man-made object in space. It's been continuously inhabited since 2000 and visited by over 200 individuals. The ISS fundamentally transformed a battlefield of Cold War competition into a unified, floating symbol of peace. All right, let's explore Section 5. Peering into deep space. With humanity's presence in Earth's orbit finally secured, we naturally turned our eyes outward to expand our cosmic horizon. We wanted a much closer look at celestial bodies we simply couldn't approach before. We saw the early Mariner missions targeting Mars, Pioneer probes heading out to Jupiter and Saturn, and of course the legendary Voyager 1 and 2 missions capturing Uranus and Neptune. Pretty soon our quest expanded to viewing the deep universe itself. And wow, did we ever get a view! In April 1990, NASA and ESA launched the Hubble Space Telescope, and it literally set the scientific world ablaze. It gave us our very first crystal-clear glimpses into the distant universe. I'm talking about concrete visual proof of our cosmic origins, giving us monumental photos like the Pillars of Creation.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 6, the new era of exploration.
Today, we're witnessing some truly exponential growth in the space industry. We aren't just doing flybys anymore, we are actively touching distant objects and dreaming bigger than ever before. Private corporations like SpaceX, established in 2002, are driving massive changes in rocket efficiency. Rovers like Curiosity are physically digging into the Martian surface right now. And missions like Rosetta, they achieved the magnificent feat of orbiting and then landing the Philae probe directly on a moving comet back in 2014. 100 times. That is how much more powerful the James Webb Space Telescope is compared to its predecessor, Hubble. Launched deep into space on Christmas Day in 2021, this technological marvel is offering incredibly vivid upgrades to iconic images, allowing us to peer into the most distant, ancient galaxies you could possibly imagine. But even as deep space comes sharply into focus, we're simultaneously returning to our roots. In November 2022, Apollo's successor, Artemis 1, launched. This monumental step signals humanity's imminent return to the moon after more than half a century, laying the crucial groundwork for even deeper expeditions into the unknown. So from engineering a lethal weapon of war to entering an era where we are routinely making the impossible possible, our journey has been nothing short of spectacular. It really leaves us with one thrilling question to ponder about our future. What distant mysteries will humanity unlock next? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking up.